I guess we can get started then, can't we? Sweet. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and thanks for tuning in. This is obviously the Epoch 12 review and AMA. Both the foundation and trading are obviously becoming more transparent and open with their thoughts with everything relating to dYdX, V4, and the DAO more specifically. So hopefully both organizations can provide more information and context to you all within the next few weeks and months. I guess we're looking to keep the same format as the last Epoch review. I know the deck has been shared in the Discord announcements channel, so I encourage all of you to read through that in detail to understand the metrics, key data points, and everything interesting in Epoch 12. So as usual, please keep the questions you want asked posted in the Discord, and after these questions, we'll open up the stage for the AMA. For all of you who didn't attend last Epoch, so essentially how we're working now is we just go straight into the questions. The data points that David used to talk through essentially gets posted in the deck, and the YouTube video that's in the Discord announcements channel that you can watch in your own time, and therefore you can ask questions for this during this AMA. So with that being said, today here you can see that myself, Josh, and David are from the foundation, and Corey from the dYdX trading team will address some trading related questions. And then finally, it would be great to hear your thoughts on the change of Epoch structure like we've done here in the AMA, your likes, dislikes, and if you've got any suggestions, we're more than happy to hear them in the comments and or at the end of this. So I guess we can get started straight into the questions, Corey. I guess for you, it might just be worth starting off with anything that's new at dYdX. Is there anything exciting that's happening recently that you can inform all the audience with?
Cool. Yeah, great to be here. Yeah, there's always a lot going on at dYdX. It's definitely a little bit of a slower time in the market, I would say. You just look at daily trading volumes, general users in crypto. Like a lot of these things are, there has been a bit of a bounce since like the bottom, I would say, a month or so ago. But yeah, generally, we're pretty much heads down building a lot of different things. So a vast majority or very large percentage of the team on the engineering side of things is focusing on V4 at the moment. So as it relates to product development on V3, things there are a little bit, slower, I would say, generally to kind of get out the door. But having said that, there's always some stuff going on here. I'd say a big thing for us is just figuring out ways in which we can kind of better grow the user base on V3. And so, right now, maybe we're sitting at, call it 7,000 monthly active users. If we want to achieve our goals to be one of the largest exchanges in crypto, how do we really achieve exponential growth here? And yeah, I mean, that's something that I think is still like an open question. A lot of that is product dependent. So we're trying to build better features, trying to build more things on the protocol. But yeah, always like experimenting with other kind of growth campaigns and such, whether it be new deposit campaigns, volume driven campaigns in country specific geographies. So those are the types of things that we're thinking about right now over the next, call it 6 months on V3, and then on V4, it's really all about building the actual protocol to get it on the release timeframe that we've publicly communicated.
Awesome, thanks, Corey. And then touching on V4, then is there any more information that can be publicly released about the dYdX chain in V4?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we'll potentially start releasing more kind of regular updates in the coming months. But one thing I can share is that we did hit like our first internal milestone. So we released like internal dev testnet, super basic, not really ready to be reviewed by anyone else outside of like the internal engineers on the team. But it's just like a very good first milestone to hit, that we have like something, we have orders on the chain that we created. It like lives or can live in like some minimal state. And so there are like a few more milestones we do have to hit internally before we would release like a public testnet. But yeah, just to give you a general sense of how things are going, we hit our first major milestone. And yeah, things kind of still remain on track towards end of year here.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And I noticed recently on the dYdX blog, you recently announced free trading. I guess, can you just expand on what this actually means for users and traders specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so we announced free trading. This is for any users or all users that have up to $100,000 in volume per month. And so it's kind of a first step here, but really trying to think about different ways in which we could differentiate ourselves in the market. And so, a lot of users they certainly think about fees when they trade. A lot of new users, they kind of just see free trading, and they may think that the experiment here was maybe free trading will incentivize more users to like onboard to the exchange. And so yeah, we're still kind of digesting and seeing how this is playing out. But yeah, any user, new or old, gets free trading up to $100,000 in volume per month.
Bro, that's awesome. That's exciting. And then, sort of in tandem with this, are there any other trading competitions coming up that any of the community can look forward to?
Yeah, well, as probably most people on the call know, we have the trading leagues, which is trading competitions every single week. So there is always a competition to kind of participate in every single week. But yeah, I think you're likely referring to like bespoke trading competitions with various KOLs or like Twitter celebrities or whatnot. Yeah, we're thinking about doing some more of these. We might do one in like Japan, for instance, for like as an experiment for like a country specific campaign. But yeah, generally, like if we have enough interest from what I would describe as like super high quality influencers for the next one, we may roll that out. But yeah, kind of TBD still.
Nice, great, okay. And then another one on Cosmos that came in. I'm not sure if you can answer, but what are the requirements to run a validator on Cosmos? Has there been any news or information regarding this, or is this all sort of TBC?
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't released anything. It's still like up in the air, I would say, so we don't even know quite yet. But yeah, I mean, generally, if you run a validator on like other proof of stake blockchains, I'd say the requirements are going to be like fairly similar. So yeah, if you are interested and you are like already running validators on other chains, yeah, certainly feel free to reach out to us, via Discord or DMs on Twitter, Telegram, wherever it may be. And yeah, we can get you in touch with the right, people to talk to here.
Okay, that's brilliant. And then just last question, finally, there's been a number of users mentioning kind of BitMEX's recent announcement for Forex perpetuals. Are there any plans in the future for dYdX to do similar?
I mean, generally, like, adding new markets is a community-driven thing at this point. So, dYdX internal team, we don't really have the ability to like singularly add new markets anymore. So, if this was something that the community really wanted to do, I would definitely support people or encourage people to like start talking about this in forums. Make a dip and whatnot, and get this on the smart contracts. I can't actually say for sure whether or not we would be able to launch these on like the front end on the protocol. Even if it was like loaded through the smart contracts, that's like a legal question that I think we would have to do some underwriting on. But yeah, generally, like to get the ball rolling, people can certainly start talking about this in the forums and do a snapshot and so on and so forth.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Corey. Cool. I guess we can move on to the foundation team. More so for David and Josh in this question, how are the foundation looking to improve governance participation, say, over the next kind of 3, 6, 12 months or so?
Yeah, sure thing. Maybe I can give a little context, and then Josh, you can talk a little bit more about the specifics. I think at a high level, voter turnout, across DAOs, is always a challenge, and getting active participants in governance is something that a lot of DAOs, including our community, is focused on. I think if you actually look at the data, both between off-chain and on-chain, participation in our community is actually relatively high, I would say, compared to like average benchmarks. It's relatively still like single digit, but on the up high single digit. But I think there's definitely room for improvement, and ultimately, at the foundation, we're spending a lot of time thinking about how can we really measure governance participation both from a quantitative and qualitative standpoint, and really try to deploy more resources and community resources to try to improve that turnout. I think this is probably a long-term goal of ours. It's definitely not going to happen overnight, but I think generally we've been trending in kind of the right direction, and I'm generally encouraged by the level of turnout over the 20 or so DRCs and dips that we've had over the last 12 months. In terms of specifics, Josh, do you want to maybe share some of the thinking around some of the OKRs that you've been working on?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to share. So improving governance participation, I guess like in terms of like a long-term goal, it's like definitely a multi-pronged approach. There's no like single lever that you can pull, I think, to, just improve participation overall. But some of the things that we've got going on, I would say, first off, just looking at the base of people who are actually contributing, identifying, active community members, active ETH addresses in the DRC's off-chain dips and on-chain dips. I guess like step one is identifying the users who are engaging in governance, like they're voting, but they're not posting on the forums and like sharing their opinions. I think this is like one group of people who it's interesting to kind of reach out to, try to connect with, encourage them to be more active just in sharing their thoughts, because obviously like they are involved, they are taking the time to vote and like review proposals, I would assume. So always good, I think, to encourage those people to be more active in the community. On the flip side of that, I think one of the things that we're prioritizing in the next 3 to 6 months is really to increase the number of active traders who are qualifying for trading awards and who are also participating in governance. I would say that, like, if you picture a Venn diagram, that's like a sweet spot of contributors who we're particularly looking for a lot of feedback from, just because I think I've harped on this in the past, but again, like the ability for dYdX to become, the biggest crypto exchange is heavily dependent on getting active and like quality feedback from its user base in terms of governance participation. Some other things that are going on is just like doubling down, I think, on the delegation program. And Clifton has been spearheading like a number of initiatives in terms of looking at analysis of, I guess, people who are holding dYdX but not actively voting and not actively delegating. And we have been, having conversations with people about the importance of our delegation program and, all of the different delegates that have onboarded and the potential to contribute to improved decision making and higher levels of governance participation on the platform. So, like I said, no short answer, definitely like a multi-pronged approach, but it's definitely something that we are actively working on, and I would say something that like we're going to be actively measuring in terms of like success in the next 6 months.
Well, one other data point that I would share is like we definitely see a difference in participation between like snapshot votes, which don't require gas fees, and then on-chain dips that require people to send on-chain transactions. I'm really encouraged to see one grant that was funded by like dYdX Grants 1.0 successfully launch and test and was actually tested in the most recent dip. So the website called dYdX.vote, which allows for voting by signatures and allows community members to vote for on-chain dips without having to send transactions on-chain and therefore not having to pay any gas for on-chain votes. The dYdX vote was used kind of in testing for the most recent vote, and it seems like the tests were successful. So I think future votes, every single on-chain vote will be completely gas-free, and hopefully that will also help drive greater participation for on-chain dips as well. So looking forward to seeing kind of the official announcement from the dYdX.vote team. But I think that's like another example of how grants and the community at large can really help drive some of these metrics going forward.
Yeah, huge unlock and super excited to read like the full, I guess, public announcement about that. But just to follow up, there's also like a delegation component of dYdX.vote, which I'm personally super excited about, which allows people to delegate their voting power and proposing power through dYdX.vote, gasless as well. So super exciting for that.
Awesome. And shout out to all the ambassadors as well who have been working on increasing endorsed delegates and doing the Meet the Delegate series and really helping us, I guess, level up our governance as well. Sweet. I guess the next question then is touching on endorsed delegates. So we've seen an increasing number of them from the community recently. How do we plan to incentivize these to stick around for the long term?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to take this, and Josh, feel free to jump in. But yeah, I mean, I think the endorsed delegate program, right, was launched early this year. I think in the last like 6 months or so, we've gradually reached out and worked with a number of endorsed delegates who filled out kind of the required documentation and posted that on Commonwealth. I think from my standpoint, it's been really encouraging to see, the amount of interest and really the engagement from these endorsed delegates who take the time to complete information for the community to review, and then generally are just very active in the forums and participating in governance. We've spent some time putting together like public trackers on Dune to really help highlight and elevate these delegates so that people get more context about them, some history about their voting track record, as well as how many tokens that they have to propose or vote with. I think generally speaking, we view the endorsed delegate program as like, again, a really important factor for driving governance going forward. I think we currently have 13 or 14 endorsed delegates. I think our internal metric is to try to work with community members to drive that closer to 25, as a first step, and then really with the goal of trying to increase visibility around that. So I know some of the ambassadors have been working on a Meet the Delegate series and trying to do AMAs with various delegates to provide more information to community members, which is really encouraging. But I think we're still in the early days of really formalizing this program, and certainly, it's up to the community on how to incentivize and grow this over time. I think from my standpoint, if you look at, again, just like DAOs more broadly, like there's definitely been a lot of debate around whether delegates should get paid or not, or some funding from the community treasury. We haven't really seen that discussion pop up quite yet in our forums, but I think it's definitely an interesting idea that has both good and less good kind of trade-offs that are worth people debating. But I think if you look at traditional politics, politicians are generally and engaged kind of voters do have some incentives. So think there's merit to the argument, but ultimately it's up to the community to decide how funds from the treasury get split, and a portion of that could be used to drive endorsed delegate growth or governance participation more broadly. I do think there's also some benefits to thinking about non-cash rewards, so things like POOPs or access to the team, or kind of more a more smaller community for endorsed delegates to really get to know each other a little better. We're thinking kind of on a more holistic basis beyond just a financial reward. Josh, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, it was a great overview. Totally echo kind of everything you said. Just in terms of, I think a few points to add from me is just, we've seen definitely the amount of delegates that are onboarding ramp up in the kind of recent past due to a lot of great efforts from the ambassador boroughs, like Meet Your Delegate series, kind of getting the word out there. I think, as David was saying, there isn't really a critical mass. We just have internal targets, but I think really the difference between an endorsed delegate that onboards and an active endorsed delegates, that is two different things to me. The latter is an endorsed delegate that is heavily involved in governance and is actively sharing their positions on various proposals. Even if they are, I think one good example is LP rewards formula. We often see, I think just that's a conversation heavily dominated by market makers, I think, due to the subject matter. But would love to see more active participation from the community, just because I think it is LP rewards formula changes are changes that do affect the dYdX protocol overall. And I think an active delegation program is a delegation program that involves, I guess, delegates getting involved in all aspects of the protocol. And I think went on a bit of a tangent there, but just in terms of overall participation, I think the number that we're striving for, or that delegates should be striving for, kind of that's outlined in the code of conduct. It's there's no enforcement metrics, right? It's designed as a free market, so actively participating delegates should be receiving the majority of delegated voting and proposing power, but would love to see just higher participation rates, upwards of 90%, I believe is what's in the code of conduct. And I think it's just really early still in terms of when the majority of delegates have onboarded to kind of track that performance. So definitely exciting to see people getting involved and interested, and looking forward to, I guess, seeing all the quality discussion that comes from all the new delegates.
Nice, awesome. And just quickly, if anyone wants to collect the POOP for today's Epoch 12 review and AMA, head into the Hedgies General or the dYdX General channel. Ali Card has posted a form in there for users to collect your POOP. So yeah, by all means, go and collect your POOP and sign that form, and we'll get it sent out to you within the week. Cool. I guess last couple of questions from the foundation side. There was a question brought up about kind of stages for DAO implementation. Are there any updates on this? How does one become part of the DAO? I don't know if David or Josh want to take that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to start. Again, I think there's, the DAO already exists. In a lot of ways, the DAO is the existing community, and it's a lot of the initiatives that are already in production, whether that's the ambassador program, the dYdX grants team, a lot of the grantees and contributors, all of those different pieces all factor into this overall concept of the dYdX DAO. I think the foundation team has been spending a lot of time thinking about trying to formalize more of these structures and try to work with community members to drive a lot of this forward. In terms of timing, I would say this is definitely a big focus and should be a big focus for the community over the next 6 months. Certainly assuming, V4 launching at the end of this year. I think a big part of that responsibility is for really the DAO to become much more mature than where it is today. At that point, the community, should it decide to have dYdX token as the main token within kind of V4 and Cosmos, will really have full control over virtually all aspects of the protocol. And so for that, I think for that to be successful, the community really needs to mobilize itself to be able to really be effective in terms of decision making and control. And so, we've been spending a lot of time internally thinking through how do we push that thinking forward. But I do think this is going to be a big focus for the foundation team and several community members over the next few weeks and months. Josh, I don't know if you have more that you'd like to share.
Yeah, for sure. I think you touched on it perfectly, David. Is like a member of the DAO. Like I think it's a tough thing to define, but you can define it as dYdX community members, dYdX stakeholders. Like I generally take like a broader view of like the stakeholder, I think, just because like there are different people who come in and contribute to dYdX. But I would say definitely would encourage everybody who's like listening at later dates, like getting involved with the DAO is not, at some point there's going to be like an application process for like the dYdX DAO. No, it's like actively contributing to today, like some of what I was talking about, getting involved in like governance forums, governance posts, telling people why you're voting a certain way, providing product feedback about the exchange, also extends to, I think the grants program and the ambassador program are two great programs to get involved with if you want to start working more closely with dYdX. There's multiple ways I think to get involved.
There's also the bounty board that the ambassadors have been working on that have kind of one-off tasks that they're looking for community members to get involved with. So again, I think there's like a lot of different ways to get involved, as Josh laid out. But we're hoping to be able to provide kind of a clearer picture of onboarding and all the different ways to get involved again over the next few weeks and months.
Awesome. And I know we've got Carl here from the grants team. So Carl, sorry for putting you on the spot and inviting you up like this. I just wondered if you wanted to talk about the recent success for V1.5.
Of course, no need to apologize for that. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So here we are. Super excited that the grants V1.5 proposal was approved by the community. Really appreciate everybody participating in the forum discussions, in the Snapchat vote, and in the on-chain vote. Just generally everybody giving us feedback and being a part of this process was great, and it was fantastic to see just kind of generally overwhelming support for the relaunch of grants. And so now we've been eagerly anticipating this relaunch, and we have a lot of catching up to do on applicants that submitted and who have been very patient with us as we've worked towards this goal of getting back up and going. So to everybody that has been waiting and who has just kind of worked with us throughout this process of getting some additional funding, thank you for that. And we'll be getting in touch with everybody who was kind of put on hold in terms of next steps. So basically right now this week we're getting right back up to speed, and we have a few updates that we're going to share throughout the week as to some new RFQs that we're setting up, some new goals, some new kind of designs and strategies that we're hoping to implement in V1.5 to make it even more effective than V1. So we're really going to apply the lessons that we learned with the more generalized and like open structure that we had with V1. That was great as like an initial setup for grants, and we all learned a lot from it, and we saw a lot of success from it, but we definitely learned a lot from it as well. And so now we have a much more focused and kind of concentrated version of grants compared to V1. To anybody who didn't get a chance to read it, if you go to dYdXgrants.com on the blog, the latest posts outlines some of this initially with the targets that we're aiming for in grants V1.5. And so through that, you can see that we have like kind of few general goals already that we've started to look at, and then we're going to be focusing our attention on those specifically. But yeah, expect to see more updates from us this week, and then we're hoping to kind of get our first round of grants approved by next week. We have a few changes on the trustee side, which hopefully won't take too long. We just need to change the multi-sig signers and stuff like that. But just some housekeeping operational work to be done before we can really kick things off. Shouldn't take too long. Happy to answer any questions about grants while I'm here, if anybody has any.
Awesome. Thanks, Carl. That's really exciting. Really looking forward to seeing the impact that has. I guess, yeah, based on that, we can start to open the floor for some questions. Anyone wants to ask anything to the foundation, trading, or grants team, then by all means raise your hand. I can see White T has been wanting to speak for a little while, so we can invite you up first. Hopefully you should there we are. Brilliant.
Hi for all. It's Nico Bilic. So one of my questions were I observed that some people who actually were not active before start make some actions, and they also applied for delegates. And I wanna ask, are you sure that each person who actually applied form can be delegate? Because according to my opinion, that some of persons only want to get some bounties from being a delegate, and this one like step will be only just for earning some rewards for first point, and after like several times they will just disappear somewhere and so on.
To jump in there, yeah. Thanks for the question. Just in terms of like, the amount of delegates that have onboarded, I just want to be like super clear that like the foundation does not gatekeep or like monitor the delegates that onboard. Basically, like those onboarding steps are just a way to provide the community with like more information about the delegate to understand like where they're coming from when they approach specific questions on the protocol, like what their background is, what they believe in. We are not like vetting the delegates in terms of like participation rates and like the reasons why they're onboarding. Again, like the foundation is just like, the objective third party that's in place to ensure community self-sustainability, right? So our goal with building that onboarding program was to provide the community with more information. If you have like specific requests in regards to like, the motivations of a delegate, I would suggest just like reaching out to them directly on the community forums. Alternatively, like, onboarding is one step, but receiving proposed voting power and delegated proposing power and delegated voting power is a completely separate step. In addition to onboarding, I don't think I can almost say like, wholly confidently that like just by virtue of onboarding, like delegates do not receive any voting power or proposing power. They actually do need to be like actively contributing people with dYdX tokens that want to delegate need to recognize said individual who is a delegate and then like want to delegate their tokens because they, either agree with the way that the delegate like approaches certain situations. Yeah, stuff like that.
So what is my main point that nowadays to obtain, for example, 1000 of dYdX delegated, it's not a problem, but from my opinion, it's very important what this one person make before for community, and also how long he stay there. Cause you know that for some people, for example, can just make a good impression and great view from first time, make some like smooth actions, and later it disappear. But most of guys who were before and make like good benefits for community, also assisting, helping, and so on, sometimes can make more profits, and they can be like more delegated person than anyone who just applied. I don't want to point by fingers, but main idea that according to my opinion might be something like the requirement how long you stay in the community and how much you get before then got this one education, how to become delegate, how to get these bonuses of delegator, and so on.
Yeah, for sure. I think those are good points. If you, for example, want to add something to the onboarding steps or like the code of conduct that is currently posted, like I strongly encourage you to like provide feedback on the forums and see what other people think. Like those are living documents; they're not set in stone. In terms of going back to something previously that you said, just in terms of like education, the ambassadors have put out like a very nice course in terms of like onboarding to become an endorsed delegate, which like it would like perfectly fit in there to understand, as like you have to be within the community for a specific amount of time or like hit certain contribution participation rates to maintain your status. But again, just want to reiterate, like definitely totally community driven on like the requirements and holding the endorsed delegates accountable.
Thanks, Nico. Anyone else? Anyone else got any questions to bring up? We've got a little while to go, so we can bring you on stage. No, quiet bunch today. Cool. All right. Well, we'll call that early. Thanks, Carl. Thanks, David, Josh, and Corey for coming on. Thanks everyone in the audience for listening. As usual, we'll decipher this, send this off to be transcribed, and then post it out onto YouTube. If there's any questions or any feedback on these AMAs, then by all means leave them in the channels on Discord, and we can reach out into the DMs and chat about it. Cool. All right. Well, we'll close this off and we'll catch you all next time. Thanks, everyone.